I knew I was too late the moment Marcus looked at me like I was just his friend. Not in a bad way. Not cold, not distant. Just comfortable. Familiar. Safe. And somehow, that hurt more than anything else. It happened on a random Tuesday night, the kind that doesn't feel important until it becomes something you can't forget. We were sitting on his balcony, cheap beer in hand, city lights stretching out in front of us like something out of a movie. Marcus leaned back in his chair, one arm resting behind his head, completely at ease. "I think I'm gonna ask her," he said. Just like that. No build-up. No warning. My grip tightened slightly around the bottle, but I forced myself to stay still. Ask her what? I already knew the answer. I just needed a second, or maybe I needed to hear him say it out loud so it would finally feel real. He glanced at me, a small smile tugging at his lips. To marry me. There it was. Simple. Casual. Life-changing. I let out a quiet breath, hoping it didn't sound as heavy as it felt. Damn, I said, nodding slowly. That's big. Marcus laughed softly. Yeah. Feels weird saying it out loud. We fell into a brief silence, the kind that used to feel comfortable between us. But now it was different. Now it felt like something was slipping through my fingers, and I had no idea how to stop it. Or if I even had the right to. Her name was Claire. They'd been together for 2 years. She was smart, kind, easy to talk to. I'd met her a few times, and every single time, I found myself thinking the same thing. Of course he'd choose her. Because why wouldn't he? She made sense in a way I never could. I took a sip of my beer, buying myself time. So, you're sure? I asked. Marcus shrugged, but his expression softened slightly. Yeah. I mean, I love her, you know. That word. Love. It landed somewhere deep in my chest, pressing against something I had spent years trying not to name. I nodded again, forcing a small smile. Then yeah, I said. You should do it. He looked at me for a second longer than usual, like he was trying to read something on my face. Then he smiled. Thanks, man. Man. Friend. Safe. That's what I was to him. And the worst part? I had built it that way. We met 3 years ago, both of us trying to figure out life after college. Same gym, same dumb routine of showing up at the same time every evening until eventually, it turned into conversations. Then inside jokes. Then late-night drives and takeout that turned into hours of talking about everything and nothing. Marcus had this way of pulling people in without trying. Confident, but not arrogant. Easygoing, but never careless. And me? I was the opposite in a lot of ways. More reserved. More in my head. But with him, it felt easy. Too easy. That's probably where I messed up. Because somewhere along the way, it stopped being just friendship for me. And instead of saying anything, I buried it. I told myself it wasn't worth risking what we had. That it was just a phase. That it would pass. It didn't. It just got quieter. Heavier. And now? Now I was sitting across from him while he talked about building a future with someone else. Hey, Marcus said suddenly. I blinked, realizing I'd drifted off. Yeah? You're quiet tonight. I huffed out a small laugh. Just tired. He didn't look convinced. You sure? There it was again. That look. The one that lingered just a little too long. The one that made my chest tighten in a way I couldn't explain. Or maybe I could. I just didn't want to. Yeah, I said, holding his gaze for a second before looking away. I'm good. Marcus nodded slowly, but something in his expression shifted. Subtle, but there. Like he knew I wasn't telling him everything. Like maybe he never had. We sat there a little longer, finishing our drinks, talking about random things. Work. The gym. Some stupid show he'd been watching. Normal stuff. Safe stuff. But underneath it, there was this quiet tension I couldn't ignore anymore. Because now that I had heard it, now that I knew where his life was heading, there was no going back to pretending. Later, when I finally stood up to leave, Marcus walked me to the door like he always did. "Hey," he said, stopping me for a second. I turned back. "For what it's worth, I'm glad you were the first person I told." That hit harder than it should have. I swallowed, forcing a small smile. "Yeah," I said. "Me too." It wasn't a lie. But it wasn't the whole truth either. Because as I walked away from his apartment, hands shoved deep into my pockets, one thought kept repeating in my head over and over again. I should have told him sooner. Before her. Before this. Before it became too late to matter. I didn't sleep that night. Not even close. I just lay there, staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment with Marcus like my brain had decided now was the perfect time to go through years of memories I had carefully avoided analyzing. It was stupid, honestly. Nothing had actually changed, at least not on the surface. Marcus was still Marcus. I was still me. We were still us. Except we weren't. Because now there was a deadline. A countdown I hadn't agreed to, ticking quietly in the background. I rolled onto my side, grabbing my phone, half expecting a message from him. There wasn't one. Of course there wasn't. He was probably asleep. Or texting Claire. Or just living his life like normal. Meanwhile, I felt like mine had just shifted in a way I couldn't undo. By morning, I had two options: pretend nothing happened, or finally do something about it. I chose the easier one. At least, that's what I told myself. The next few days, I avoided him. Not in an obvious way. I still replied to messages, still reacted to memes he sent, still kept everything surface level normal. But I didn't go over. Didn't suggest hanging out. Didn't give myself a chance to sit across from him and feel that same pressure building in my chest. It worked. Kind of. Until Friday. "You alive?" Marcus texted. I stared at the message longer than I should have. "Barely," I replied. "Good. Come over tonight." No question. No hesitation. That was Marcus. I hesitated anyway. I could say no. Make up an excuse. Buy myself more time. But time for what? To keep running in circles inside my own head? Before I could overthink it further, I typed back. "Yeah. What time?" "Now." I huffed out a quiet laugh despite myself. Some things never changed. When I got to his place, the door was already unlocked. "Seriously?" I called out, stepping inside. "Relax." Marcus's voice came from the kitchen. "If you were a serial killer, I'd be dead already." I kicked off my shoes, shaking my head as I walked in. He was standing by the counter, 2 beers already open. "Figured you'd say yes," he said, handing me one. "Cocky," I muttered, taking it anyway. "Accurate," he corrected with a smirk. God, that smirk. I looked away, taking a sip just to give myself something to do. We settled into the couch like always. Same spots. Same distance. Same routine. It should have felt normal. It didn't. Marcus noticed. Of course he did. "You've been weird," he said after a few minutes. Straight to the point. I exhaled slowly. "I've always been weird. Not like this." I didn't respond. Because he wasn't wrong. He shifted slightly, turning toward me more fully. "Did I do something?" he asked. That caught me off guard. "What?" "No." "Then what is it?" His tone wasn't pushy. Just direct. Like he genuinely wanted to understand. That made it harder. I stared down at the bottle in my hands, watching the condensation slide down the glass. "Nothing," I said finally. Marcus let out a quiet breath. "Ethan." The way he said my name firm, but not harsh, made my chest tighten. I still didn't look at him. "Talk to me." I swallowed. This was it. The moment I had been avoiding. I could still back out. Laugh it off. Change the subject. Keep everything exactly the way it was. Safe. Simple. A lie. I started, then stopped. Marcus didn't interrupt. Didn't rush me. He just waited. And somehow, that made it worse. I didn't think it would hit me like that, I admitted quietly. Hit you how? I let out a small, humorless laugh. You getting married? Silence. Heavy. Immediate. I finally looked up. Marcus was watching me closely, his expression unreadable. Why? He asked. One word. That was all it took. I could feel my pulse in my throat, my hands tightening slightly around the bottle. Because there it was. The question I couldn't answer without changing everything. I held his gaze for a second. Then looked away again. I don't know. I lied. Marcus didn't buy it. I could tell. Ethan, he said again, quieter this time. And there was something in his voice now. Something I hadn't heard before. Not confusion. Not frustration. Something closer to realization. My chest tightened. Because for the first time, I had a feeling he was starting to see it. And if he did, there would be no going back. I should have said it. That's the part that still gets me. Because the moment was right there, wide open, waiting, and I still chose to hesitate. Marcus didn't look away. Not even for a second. You don't know? He repeated quietly. I shook my head, but it felt weak. Unconvincing, even to me. Nah, it's just. I trailed off, forcing a shrug. We've known each other a long time. I guess it's weird, that's all. The second the words left my mouth, I knew they weren't enough. Marcus leaned back slightly, studying me like he was trying to decide whether to push or let it go. He didn't let it go. That's not it, he said. Not a question. A statement. I exhaled slowly, running a hand through my hair. You're overthinking it. I don't think I am. Of course he didn't. Marcus had always been like that. Once he locked onto something, he didn't drop it until he understood it. And right now, he was locked onto me. You've been distant all week, he continued. You barely answered my texts. You didn't come over until I basically dragged you here. And now you're sitting there acting like. Like what? I cut in, sharper than I meant to. The shift in tone hung between us. Marcus didn't flinch. Like something's wrong, he said, calm but firm. And you won't tell me what it is. I looked away, jaw tightening. Because he was right. And I hated that he was right. Not everything is about you, Marcus, I muttered. The second I said it, I regretted it. Not because it wasn't technically true, but because I knew why I said it. To deflect. To push him back before he got too close. Marcus went quiet for a moment. When I finally looked back at him, something had changed. Not anger. Worse. Hurt. Wow, he said softly. Okay. That hit harder than anything else. I rubbed my face, exhaling. Fuck. I didn't mean it like that. Then how did you mean it? I didn't have an answer. Or maybe I did, I just wasn't ready to say it out loud. The silence stretched, thick and uncomfortable. Marcus stood up suddenly, pacing a few steps before turning back to me. You know what? He said. I don't get it. I stayed quiet. You've never shut me out like this before, he continued. If something's going on, you tell me. That's how this works. That's how it's always worked. I swallowed. I know. Then why now? There it was again. That question? The one I couldn't keep dodging forever. My chest felt tight, like something was pressing down on it from the inside. Because this right here was the moment everything could change. And for some reason, that scared me more than losing him. I looked up at him. Really looked this time. The frustration in his eyes. The confusion. And underneath it, something else. Something I couldn't quite name, but it made my pulse pick up anyway. You really don't see it? I asked quietly. Marcus frowned slightly. See what? I let out a small breath, shaking my head. Of course he didn't. Why would he? To him, this was coming out of nowhere. To me, it had been building for years. I can't do this, I muttered, pushing myself up from the couch. Marcus stepped in front of me before I could move past him. Do what? This? I gestured vaguely between us. Whatever this is. Then explain it to me, he said, his voice sharper now. Because I'm clearly missing something. My heart was pounding. Loud. Fast. Unavoidable. Ethan. I'm in love with you, okay? The words came out before I could stop them. Too fast. Too raw. Too real. And just like that, everything stopped. Marcus froze. Completely. Like I had just hit pause on the entire world. I could hear my own breathing, uneven and too loud in the silence that followed. I didn't move. Didn't look away. Because if I did, I knew I wouldn't be able to look back. Marcus blinked once. Twice. Like his brain was trying to catch up with what I had just said. You what? He asked, barely above a whisper. I let out a shaky breath. Yeah, I said, my voice quieter now. That's why. There it was. No taking it back. No pretending anymore. Just the truth. Hanging in the space between us. And the worst part? I had no idea what he was going to do with it. Marcus didn't move. Didn't blink. Didn't even breathe for what felt like way too long. And in that silence, I could actually feel the moment breaking apart, like everything we were before was hanging by a thread, and I had just cut it. I'm in love with you. Hearing it out loud, in my own voice, made it feel even more real. More irreversible. Marcus finally took a small step back, like he needed space just to process it. Ethan. He started, then stopped. That hesitation? It told me everything. I forced a tight smile, even though my chest felt like it was caving in. Yeah, I said quietly. That's what I didn't want to say. He ran a hand through his hair, pacing once, twice, like he was trying to physically work through what I just dropped on him. I didn't know, he said finally. And the thing is? I believed him. Because if he had known, things wouldn't have been like this. Or maybe they would have. Maybe that was worse. I know, I said. That's kind of the point. He stopped pacing, looking at me again. But since when? He asked. Like how long? I let out a small breath, shaking my head. Does it matter? Yeah, he said, more firmly than I expected. It does. I hesitated. Because saying it out loud would only make it heavier. But I'd already crossed the line. There wasn't like a start date, I admitted. It just happened. Somewhere along the way. Marcus stared at me, trying to piece it together. All this time? He asked. I gave a small nod. Pretty much. Another silence. But this one felt different. Thicker. More fragile. Marcus looked away first, jaw tightening slightly. Why didn't you say anything? He asked. I almost laughed. Seriously? I'm asking. I shook my head, disbelief mixing with frustration. Because you were straight, I said. Because you were dating girls. Because I didn't want to ruin what we had. Pick one. That doesn't mean. It does, Marcus. I cut in, sharper now. It does mean that. He stopped, his expression shifting again this time, something closer to conflict. I would have handled it, he said. I let out a quiet, bitter laugh. You're barely handling it now. That landed. I saw it in the way his shoulders tensed slightly. Yeah, he admitted under his breath. At least he was honest. We stood there, facing each other, but it felt like we were suddenly miles apart. Everything that used to be easy between us? Gone. Replaced with something heavy and uncertain. Marcus exhaled slowly, rubbing the back of his neck. I don't know what you want me to say, he said. That hurt more than I expected. Because I didn't know either. I don't want you to say anything, I replied quietly. Then what do you want? I hesitated. Because the truth? The truth was dangerous. I just needed you to know, I said finally. Marcus frowned slightly. Why now? There it was. The question I had been asking myself all week. I swallowed, my voice coming out lower this time. Because you're about to marry someone else. That hit. I saw it. The way his expression shifted, the way something in his eyes flickered like that piece finally clicked into place. Oh, he said quietly. Yeah. Oh. I didn't plan it like this, I added softer now. I didn't wake up one day and decide, yeah, this is the perfect time to ruin everything. You didn't ruin anything, Marcus said quickly. I looked at him. Really looked. Didn't I? He didn't answer right away. And that silence? That was my answer. I nodded slowly, more to myself than to him. Yeah, I murmured. That's what I thought. Marcus stepped forward slightly. Ethan, I think I should go. I cut in. I couldn't stay there. Not like this. Not when everything felt so exposed. He looked like he wanted to argue. Like he wanted to stop me. But he didn't. And somehow, that was worse. Okay, he said quietly. Just, okay. I grabbed my jacket, my movements slower than usual, like part of me was still hoping he'd say something, anything to change this. He didn't. When I reached the door, I paused for a second, my hand resting on the handle. I didn't turn around. Because I knew if I did, I might not leave. Congrats, I said, my voice tight. Really? It sounded wrong. Forced. But it was the only thing I had left. Then I opened the door and walked out. And just like that, I lost him. Or maybe I had lost him a long time ago. I just didn't realize it until now. I avoided him again. But this time, it wasn't subtle. No replies. No reactions. Nothing. The first message came the next morning. Hey. Simple. Careful. I stared at it for a long time before putting my phone face down on the table. I told myself I needed space. That he needed space. That there was nothing left to say anyway. Then came the second message. Are you okay? That one almost broke me. Because it was so him. Even now. Even after everything I dropped on him, his first instinct was still to check on me. I didn't answer that one either. The third message didn't come until late that night. Ethan, can we talk? I turned my phone off after that. The days after felt off. Like I was moving through something slightly out of sync with the world. Work didn't help. The gym didn't help. Even going out with friends felt pointless. Like I was just filling time instead of actually living it. And no matter what I did, my brain kept circling back to the same thing. His face. That moment after I said it. Shock. Confusion. Something else I couldn't quite read. Regret. I hated that word. Because it made it feel like I had done something wrong. But what was the alternative? Keep lying? Keep pretending I didn't feel anything while he built a life right in front of me? No. I couldn't do that either. So yeah, maybe there was no version of this that didn't hurt. A week passed before I saw him again. Not planned. Not prepared. I was leaving the gym, towel slung over my shoulder, still slightly out of breath, when I spotted him leaning against his car. My stomach dropped instantly. He looked the same. That was the first thing I noticed. Same posture. Same calm presence. But there was something different in his eyes when they met mine. Relief. And something heavier underneath. Hey, he said, pushing himself off the car. I froze for half a second before forcing myself to move. Hey. Awkward. God, it was awkward. We stood there for a moment, neither of us sure how to bridge the gap that hadn't existed before. Marcus broke first. You've been ignoring me. Straight to it. Of course. I needed space, I said. Yeah, I figured. He nodded. I just didn't think you'd disappear completely. I shrugged slightly. Didn't know what to say. That makes two of us. he admitted. There was a pause. But this one didn't feel as sharp as before. Still tense. Still fragile. But different. I've been thinking, Marcus said. That immediately put me on edge. About what? I asked carefully. He let out a small breath, glancing down for a second before looking back at me. About what you said. My chest tightened. Of course he had. I meant it, I said quietly. I know, he replied. That's kind of the problem. That stung. More than I expected. I crossed my arms slightly, more defensive than I wanted to be. Yeah, well, sorry for being honest, I guess. Marcus frowned. That's not what I meant. Then what did you mean? He hesitated. And that hesitation? It pissed me off more than anything else. Just say it, I said. Marcus ran a hand through his hair, clearly frustrated not at me, but at himself. I mean, I don't know what to do with it, Ethan, he said finally. There it was. Raw. Unfiltered. And somehow worse than rejection. I let out a quiet breath, nodding slightly. Yeah, I said. That makes sense. It's not that simple, he added quickly. It kind of is, I replied. You're getting married. I told you how I feel. End of story. Marcus stepped closer. Is it? He asked. I held his gaze. It should be. Another pause. Closer this time. Too close. I could see the tension in his jaw, the way his eyes kept flicking between mine like he was searching for something. For what it's worth, he said slowly. You telling me it didn't feel like nothing? My heart skipped. I hated that it did. What does that mean? I asked. Marcus exhaled, like he didn't have a clean answer. It means I can't just pretend I didn't hear it. I swallowed. Okay. And I can't just go back to normal, he added. That hit differently. Because that's exactly what I had been trying to do. Or at least, survive without him. So don't, I said quietly. Marcus shook his head slightly. You're making this sound easier than it is. I let out a small, humorless laugh. Trust me, it's not easy for me either. I know, he said. And for a second, we just stood there. All the things unsaid hanging between us. Then Marcus did something that completely threw me off. He stepped even closer. Close enough that I could feel the heat from his body. Close enough that it wasn't just friendly distance anymore. Ethan, he said lower now. My pulse spiked instantly. Yeah? He hesitated. Just for a second. Like he was standing on the edge of something. I keep replaying it, he admitted. What? That moment, he said. What you said? My chest tightened again. Okay. And I keep thinking, he continued, voice quieter now. How the hell did I not see it? I didn't know what to say to that. Because honestly, I didn't know either. Marcus searched my face again, closer than ever now. And why it bothered me so much, he added. That made my heart stop for a second. Marcus, I don't think it's just because you said it, he said. Everything in me went still. Because I knew where this was going. Or at least, I thought I did. And I wasn't sure I was ready for it. Not when it might change everything all over again. I should have stepped back. That's the first thing that hit me. The way he was standing too close, too intense, saying things he shouldn't be saying right before getting married. Every logical part of my brain was screaming at me to shut it down. But I didn't move. Marcus, I said quietly, more like a warning than anything else. He didn't back off. If it was just you, he continued, if it was just you telling me something I didn't expect, then yeah. I'd be confused, I'd feel bad, but it would pass. My chest tightened. But it's not passing, he added. That landed hard. I swallowed. That doesn't mean anything. It means something, he said immediately. It means you're overthinking. I shot back, even though my voice wasn't as steady as I wanted it to be. Marcus shook his head. No. I've been overthinking for a week, he said. This isn't that. There was something different in his tone now. Less defensive. More certain. And that scared me more than anything. Then what is it? I asked. He hesitated. And for a second, I thought, this is it. He's going to say it. He's going to cross that line. But instead, he looked at me like he was trying to understand himself in real time. I don't know, he admitted. That wasn't what I expected. I let out a breath I didn't realize I was holding. Exactly, I said. You don't know. So maybe don't blow up your entire life over something you can't even explain. That hit a nerve. I saw it in the way his jaw tightened. You think this is nothing? He asked. I think you're about to get married, I said. And you're standing way too close to me having this conversation. Silence. Heavy. Unavoidable. Marcus glanced down for a second. Like he was just now realizing how close we actually were. But he didn't step back. That was the problem. That's not fair, he said quietly. I let out a small, incredulous laugh. What's not fair? That I'm pointing out reality? No, he said. That you're acting like I don't have a right to be affected by this. I blinked. That caught me off guard. Of course you're affected, I said. I just didn't expect it to matter this much. Marcus held my gaze. Yeah, he said. Neither did I. That shifted something. Because there was no joke in his voice. No deflection. No easy way out. Just honesty. And that made it dangerous. I rubbed the back of my neck, taking a small step back this time. Finally putting some space between us. That doesn't change anything, I said, quieter now. It can't. Marcus didn't move. Why not? I stared at him. Seriously? Yeah, he said. Seriously. I shook my head, almost in disbelief. Because you love her. The words came out heavier than I expected. Marcus didn't respond immediately. And that hesitation? It twisted something in my chest. You said that yourself, I added. I did, he said. Then what are we even talking about? Another pause. But this one felt different. Less certain. More complicated. Marcus exhaled slowly, looking away for the first time since this started. I thought I had everything figured out, he said. That wasn't an answer. Marcus. I did, he repeated, quieter now. It was simple. I had a plan. A future. Everything made sense. I stayed silent. Because I could already see where this was going. And then you said that, he continued, looking back at me. And now it doesn't feel simple anymore. My chest tightened. That's not my fault, I said. I know, he replied immediately. I'm not blaming you. But it doesn't change the fact that something shifted. There it was again. That word. Shifted. Like everything we had been standing on wasn't as solid as we thought. I shook my head. No, I said firmly. You're just reacting. It'll pass. Marcus didn't agree. I could see it in his face. What if it doesn't? He asked. That question hit harder than anything else he'd said so far. Because I didn't have an answer. Or worse. I did. And I didn't want to say it. Then you deal with it, I said finally. Like an adult. Like someone who made a commitment. Marcus stepped closer again. Not as close as before. But enough. And what about you? He asked. What about me? You just walk away, he said. Pretend you don't feel anything? I let out a quiet breath. I've been doing that for years. That shut him up for a second. Good. Because I needed him to understand that this wasn't new for me. This wasn't some sudden, impulsive thing. This was something I had lived with. Alone. And now? He asked. I met his gaze. Now I stop putting myself in a position where I have to. Silence. Marcus looked like he wanted to argue. Like he wanted to say something to pull me back into this. But for once, he didn't. Ethan, he started. I shook my head. No, I said. Don't. Because whatever he was about to say, I wasn't sure I could handle it. Not if it gave me hope. Not if it made this even harder to walk away from. And for the first time since all of this started, I realized something clearly. This wasn't just about love coming too late. It was about what you do when it does. And whether you're strong enough to let it go anyway. I thought that was it. That I had done the hard part, said what I needed to say, created distance, made the right choice. Turns out, the hard part wasn't saying it. It was sticking to it. 2 weeks passed. No messages. No accidental run-ins. Nothing. And at first, I told myself it was working. I was sleeping again. Eating normally. Going through my routine without that constant weight sitting in my chest. It still hurt, but it was a quieter kind of hurt. Manageable. The kind you can carry if you don't look at it too closely. Then I saw the post. I wasn't even looking for it. Just scrolling, half distracted, when it showed up on my feed. A picture of Marcus and Claire. Her hand in his. A ring on her finger. Simple caption. She said yes. My chest tightened instantly. I stared at it longer than I should have. At the way he was smiling. At the way she looked at him. At how right it all seemed. This was what he wanted. This was the life he chose. And for a second, I almost felt stupid for thinking anything could have been different. I locked my phone and tossed it onto the couch, running a hand through my hair. Good, I muttered under my breath. This is good. It had to be. Because anything else would mean I had been holding on to something that was never really mine. I didn't expect him to show up. Not after everything. Not after I made it clear I was stepping back. But 3 nights later there he was. Standing outside my apartment. I almost didn't open the door. Almost. But something in me, maybe habit, maybe something worse, made me do it anyway. What are you doing here? I asked the second I saw him. Marcus looked different. Not physically. But there was something in his expression. Something unsettled. We need to talk, he said. Of course we did. I exhaled, stepping aside to let him in. Make it quick. He walked in slowly, like he wasn't entirely sure he was welcome anymore. Fair. Congratulations, I said before he could start. I saw the post. Marcus nodded once. Yeah. Silence. Thick. Awkward. I crossed my arms slightly. So what, you came here for closure? To make sure I'm okay with it? No, he said immediately. Then what? He hesitated. That hesitation again. But this time, it felt heavier. I can't do it, he said. I frowned. Do what? This, he gestured vaguely. All of it. I stared at him. What are you talking about? Marcus ran a hand through his hair, pacing once like he needed movement to even get the words out. I thought I could just move forward, he said. Ignore everything. Stick to the plan. And I can't. My chest tightened. Marcus. I said yes, he continued, his voice more intense now. I proposed. She said yes. Everything should feel right. I didn't like where this was going. Then why are you here? I asked quietly. He stopped pacing. Looked at me. And for the first time since all of this started, he looked unsure. Because it doesn't, he said. Silence. I felt it hit. Right in the center of my chest. That's not. I started, then stopped. Because I didn't even know how to finish that sentence. That's not my problem? That's not fair? That's not what I want to hear. Ethan, Marcus said, stepping closer. I tried to ignore it. I really did. But it's like, everything feels off now. I shook my head slightly. No, I said. No, don't do that. Do what? Don't come here and say things like that. I snapped. Not after you just proposed to someone else. I know how it sounds. It sounds like you're confused. I cut in. And you're about to make a really bad decision because of it. Marcus's expression tightened. You think this is just confusion? I think you're about to ruin your life. I said. And hers. That hit. I saw it. Good. Because he needed to hear it. This isn't about ruining anything, he said. Then what is it about? He stepped closer again. And this time, I didn't step back. It's about the fact that I can't stop thinking about you, he said. My heart slammed against my ribs. Hard. Fast. Uncontrolled. Marcus. I tried, he said, his voice lower now. I tried to go back to normal. To focus on what I have. But every time I think about the future, about getting married. He stopped. Swallowed. Then looked at me like he was finally saying something he couldn't take back. You're there. Everything in me went still. Because this was the line. The one we hadn't crossed yet. The one that changed everything. You don't mean that, I said quietly. I do. You don't, I repeated, firmer this time. You're just. Stop, he said. And the way he said it. It made me stop. Don't tell me what I feel, he added. I stared at him. Because now I didn't know what was real anymore. You're getting married, I said again, like if I repeated it enough, it would anchor this back to reality. Marcus didn't look away. Maybe I shouldn't be. That broke something. Marcus, no, I said, shaking my head. You don't get to do that. You don't get to come here after years of me keeping my mouth shut, after I finally move on, and suddenly decide you might feel something too. I'm not deciding anything, he said. I'm realizing it. Too late, I said immediately. The words came out sharper than I expected. But they were true. Painfully true. Marcus flinched slightly. Is it? He asked. I held his gaze. Yes. Silence. Heavy. Final. Because this was the part no one talks about. When love finally shows up. When everything lines up. When the truth is finally out in the open. And it still doesn't work. Because timing? Timing can ruin everything. I meant what I said, I added, quieter now. About not putting myself in that position anymore. Marcus's expression softened slightly. Ethan. I love you, I said. That stopped him. But I'm not going to be the reason you destroy everything you've built, I continued. And I'm not going to wait around hoping you figure it out. His jaw tightened. I'm not asking you to wait. No, I said. You're asking me to hope. That landed. Hard. And we both knew it. I stepped back this time. Creating space. Choosing it. For once, I said, I'm choosing myself. Marcus didn't move. Didn't argue. Didn't try to stop me. And somehow, that made it even harder. Because for the first time since all of this started, we both understood exactly what this was. Not almost. Not maybe. Not someday. Just. Too late. Marcus didn't come back after that. Not the next day. Not the day after. Not at all. And this time, I knew he wouldn't. The silence felt different now. Before, it had been heavy. Uncertain. Like something unfinished was hanging between us. Now, it felt final. Like we had reached the end of something we never even got to fully have. I went back to my routine. Work. Gym. Sleep. Repeat. And slowly, painfully slowly, it started to feel normal again. Not better. Just quieter. Like a storm that had passed, leaving everything slightly damaged but still standing. I stopped checking his social media. Stopped wondering if he'd text. Stopped replaying every conversation in my head. because I already knew how it ended. About a month later, I ran into him again. This time, I saw him first. He was standing outside a cafe, phone in hand, looking the same. And not the same at all. Something in my chest tightened, but it wasn't as sharp as before. More like a memory of pain than the pain itself. For a second, I thought about walking the other way. Avoiding it. Keeping things clean and distant. But then he looked up. And saw me. We both froze. Just for a second. Then he gave a small nod. Hey. I walked over. Hey. No tension this time. No weight pressing down on every word. Just quiet understanding. How've you been? He asked. Good, I said. And for the first time, it wasn't a lie. You? He nodded. Yeah, good. There was a pause. But it wasn't uncomfortable. Just careful. Measured. Congratulations, I added after a moment. Marcus held my gaze. Then shook his head slightly. It's off. My stomach dropped. What? I didn't go through with it, he said. Everything in me went still again. Just like before. But this time, it felt different. Marcus, I started, but I didn't even know what I was going to say. He exhaled slowly. I thought about what you said, he admitted. About not destroying everything, about not making decisions I don't understand. I stayed quiet. I couldn't marry her knowing something didn't feel right, he continued. That wouldn't be fair to her. That made sense. Painfully, logically, undeniably. It made sense. And? I asked. Because there was still something unfinished in his tone. Marcus looked at me. And for a second, I saw it again. That same feeling. That same pull. I needed time, he said, to figure out what was real and what wasn't. My heart picked up slightly. Not like before. Not out of panic. Just awareness. And did you? I asked. He hesitated. Then nodded. Yeah. Silence. This was it. The moment where everything could shift again. Where things could finally line up. Right. Marcus took a small step closer. Not too close. Just enough. I meant what I said, he added quietly. About you being there when I think about the future. My chest tightened. Of course he did. And now? I asked. He looked at me. Really looked. I don't think it's too late, he said. There it was. The thing I had wanted to hear for years. The thing I had imagined in 100 different ways. The thing that should have made everything finally fall into place. And yet, I just stood there. Because something had changed. Not in him. In me. I took a slow breath. It is, I said softly. Marcus frowned. What? I meant it too, I continued. About not putting myself in that position anymore. Ethan. I spent years waiting without even realizing it, I said. Years hoping for something I never had the courage to ask for. He didn't interrupt. Didn't argue. I told you when it was already too late for me, I added. And now you're telling me when I've already let it go. Marcus's expression shifted. Let it go, he repeated. I nodded. Yeah. It wasn't easy to say. But it was true. I don't feel the same way anymore, I admitted. That one hurt. Because it wasn't entirely true. Not completely. But it was true enough. True in the way that mattered now. Marcus looked like he didn't expect that. Like he thought this would be the moment everything finally worked out. I just needed time, he said. I know, I replied. And now I'm not there anymore, I finished gently. Silence. But this time, it wasn't heavy. It wasn't painful. It was just real. Marcus looked down for a second, then back at me. And slowly, he nodded. Yeah, he said quietly. I guess that's fair. No anger. No desperation. Just acceptance. The same kind I had to learn the hard way. We stood there for a moment longer. Then he gave me a small, familiar smile. "I'm glad you told me," he said. I smiled back. "Me too." And for the first time, I actually meant it. Because even though we didn't get the ending I once wanted, we got the truth. And sometimes, that's all you get. I watched him walk away. And this time, I didn't feel like I was losing something. Just closing a chapter. Because love doesn't always come at the right time. And sometimes, even when it finally does, you've already learned how to live without it.